So what does the title mean if I could only grow 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 flowers? Well, what it means is if I could only grow 1 flower, what would it be? If I could only grow 2 flowers, what would the second flower be, and so forth. And it's an absolutely excellent exercise for anybody growing flowers for sale to do, because it really focuses you in on the flowers that you should be dedicating space for, and you need to then figure out how much space for before you even consider any other flower in the garden. So what's my hero flower? What's my number one if I could only grow 1 flower to grow? Well, I mean, if you've been following my channel, that should be pretty obvious that it's dahlias. I have my whole front garden full of my dahlia beds, which add up to about 160 plants. Now, one of the reasons they're all in the front garden is because we face the busy road, which is where my flower wagon is. Now, we don't have a solid fence. We have sort of a New York style iron fence that you can see through. And so all those 160 dahlias blooming profusely throughout the season is the best kind of advertising that I can do for my flower wagon, because it really does get a lot of attention. Now, what is the season for my dahlias? This is another thing that's really important for me. So because I start them indoors, and I start them February 1st, under grow lights obviously, and I don't plant them out until they already have quite a bit of green on them, which is usually where I live. I can plant them out usually after May 1st. And if I plant the tubers at the 6 inches below soil level, I still have 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of green plant above the soil surface. So they've got a really good head start. And for that reason, my dahlias start blooming around July 1st. And they keep on blooming like crazy until the first killing frost. Now for us, if I look back on my records over the last 4 years, last year the first killing frost was November 5th. The year before it was October 30th. The year before it was November 14th. The year before it was December 3rd. And the long-term forecast basically shows it's not going to happen at least until November as well. So I get a good July, August, September, October, a good 4 months, if not 4.5, if not 5 months of blooming dahlias. That's unbelievable. I mean, that is a long blooming time, and each of those plants blooms prolifically, so I get a lot of flowers to sell off of those plants. And that is why those plants are my hero plant. They're my, if I could only grow 1 plant, what would I grow? Absolutely 100% dahlias, specifically dinner plate dahlias, but since we're not categorizing down to a specific type of each flower, I'm just going to say dahlias in general, because I do grow ball dahlias and a few decorative ones as well. Now, for the exercise, well, I had to start thinking about this, because what would be my number 2, 3, 4, and 5 flowers? And I realized that they're not necessarily 5 hero flowers. They are, if my number 1 flower is dahlias, what is the flower that I'm going to grow that then complements into the dahlias for my flower wagon, so there isn't a gap of time from my number 2 flower to the dahlias, because clearly the dahlias take me to the end of the flowering season if they're going to take me to the first killing frost. So I need to pick a flower for my number 2 flower that transitions well into and with the dahlias, but actually starts before them. Now, can you guess what that flower is going to be? I'll give you a few seconds to figure that out. Okay, and that little clip that I showed you. Oh, by the way, it's Evelyn. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Evelyn, and I have a very tiny urban flower farm that I sell flowers from at my roadside stand. Showing you in this clip is my flower stand. And did you notice a second flower that was in that flower? So this tiny little video that I just showed you was taken yesterday. And there was one other flower that showed up in the bouquets, and that was the sunflower. So I sell the pop cans individually. People like to buy single stems of dahlias or 3 ball dahlias, $4 a can or 3 for $10, and I sell them in the pop cans because they easily fit into the drink container of their car, so they're in water and they don't spill, which is incredibly popular. People really do like that. The vases around the outside are often bought by people who are buying a bouquet as a present, and then they'll buy a vase or a pop can, and then they'll buy a big vase or a small vase to extend the overall gift. And while I don't sell vases on a daily basis, I do sell. I've sold 32 vases this season so far. Now, sunflower. The sunflower is what showed up in the bouquet. And as I'm getting into the dinner plate dahlias, I want those sunflowers to be smaller so they're not fighting on the mass of the dinner plate dahlias. And the nice thing about the sunflowers with the Pro Cuts is that you can determine the size of the flower that you want. Mother Nature does that as well. At this time of year, my sunflowers are going to be small no matter what. It's just everything smaller that's growing right now, which is not that much. But even the dinner plate dahlias have reduced quite a bit in size. So sunflowers are absolutely my number 2 flower because they go into the dahlia season, not to the end of it. In fact, these sunflowers that I'm going to show you right now, that I've cut and are ready to put into bouquets, that's it. That's the end of my sunflower season. It's the last of my sunflowers. I'm going to try and extend the season a little longer next year, but that is the end of them. And yet I may still be selling dahlias up until December. But the sunflowers, not only do they transition nicely into the middle of October with the dahlias, they also start 2 weeks earlier than the dahlias. So I have a good, at that point, I will have them a little bit bigger, so they're more of a focal flower. And I will have a good focal flower for the 2 weeks, and hopefully 3, because I'm also going to start planting the sunflowers earlier next year as well to try and bump the ceiling earlier. A good focal flower for that time period right before the dahlias start. And that takes me into what is my number 3 flower. My number 3 flower was a little bit hard for me to decide on. Several factors took into account for that. One, if you've been following with me, you know that I did the farmer's market for 1.5 years. I'm not doing it for the second half of the season because my flower wagon was doing really well and I didn't really have enough flowers to do both. And it's been so hot this year for us, and unnaturally hot where I live with almost no rain. I mean, it's been like a heat wave since the beginning of May till still on Vancouver Island. 2 records were broken just a few days ago for heat for the time of year. So the farmer's market was difficult and stressful to get flowers for, and incredibly hot and stressful just on my physical person being there. But the 1.5 years that I did to do it, I really paid attention to how people responded to the flowers. I didn't care how they responded to each individual bouquet. I already know that from the flower wagon. But what I wanted to pay attention to was which individual flowers created the most emotional response. Because an emotional response is closer to a sale than just a pretty flower. And all of my top 5 flowers all have emotional responses. The dahlias especially, which is, again, it's one of the reasons why they're my hero flower. They create such an emotional response with people. The sunflowers create an emotional response for people. And my number, if I could only grow 3 flowers, that starts just before the sunflowers and goes until July 1st, so right about the time the dahlias finish, so they pair nicely with the sunflowers before the dahlias start to pair with the sunflowers. And they have a really strong emotional response, and they are ranunculus. The other thing about ranunculus is not many people grow them in their garden because retail, the corms are expensive. So if you have a lot of ranunculus in your flower farm to sell as flowers. They're a beautiful flower. People respond emotionally to them, and they're most likely not going to grow them. So that was my, if I could only grow 3 flowers. And it really was a hard one because it only really covers a short little window of time for between my, if I could only grow 4 flowers, the 4th flower, and the sunflowers. And my 4th flower, which almost became the 3rd flower, but I decided didn't because the ranunculus was such a strong emotional response from people, is peonies. And specifically, I grow Ito peonies. And Ito peonies are a little bit different than your regular peonies. They are herbaceous. The regular peonies are herbaceous, which means they die back for the winter. They are weak-stemmed, which means you have to support them so they don't flop over. They attract and appeal to ants, so a lot of regular herbaceous peonies have a lot of ant problems on them. Ito peonies are a hybrid between the herbaceous peony and the tree peony. They look a lot, the flower looks a lot like the herbaceous ones, but tend to be bigger. And there's also yellow, and I believe there are no yellow herbaceous peonies, but you can get yellow in the Ito. And Bartzella, which is an Ito peony, is a yellow one. And anybody who sees it just, oh my God, what's that? They just fall in love with it. Emotional response. Now, they also have, ants have no interest in them. They do not attract the ants the way herbaceous ones do. They also have stiff stems, so you don't have to support them. So they are a lot easier to look after. They don't have the ant problem. They still die back in the winter, unlike a tree peony. And the flowers are bigger, so what more could you ask for? Their only downside is they're, again, more expensive than the herbaceous peony, which means most people aren't going to buy them and grow them in their garden. So for example, the Bartzella Ito peony, which everybody loves, they're not going to run out and buy it because it's expensive. If you're a flower farmer, that's fine, because you'll make your money back. You're not going to make it back for quite a few years because you don't really get a good harvest off of one Ito peony plant until its 4th year. But once it starts producing, you'll make your money back pretty quickly. So it's a long-term game. It's not a short-term game. But the same thing can be said goes for ranunculus, because if you dig up your corms in climates where you have to dig them up, you can divide them, multiply your stock, have them again for the following year, and so forth. So it's a long game where even though wholesale the corms are still not that cheap, but over the long run they are, because you're not having to constantly rebuy them. Now, that's my, if I could only grow 4 flowers, what would they be? The peonies, the ranunculus, the sunflowers, and the dahlias. So what became my 5th flower? By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and of course leave a comment down below. Let me know what your top 5, if I could only grow 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 flowers, would be. That would be really interesting to know if which ones are the same, or if you have some that are completely different. Well, let's get on to my number 5. Now, a lot of people would immediately assume I'm going to go to tulips because everybody considers tulips to be like a must-have for a flower farm. But it's not going to be tulips, because I don't want gaps in my flower wagon up on the road. I mean, I don't want to get my flower wagon going for tulips and daffodils and then have nothing to sell until the first week of June, and the tulips and daffodils will have finished about mid-May, and I'll have a 2-week gap of absolutely nothing. And if I waited until the peonies or the ranunculus, that wouldn't be until June. So tulips and daffodils are not going to make my, if I could only grow 5 flowers. Which is why this exercise is actually really, really good, because you would, if you think of just 5 hero flowers, you would throw tulips in there. But they cannot be if I could only grow 5, because I need to be able to put my flower wagon up on the road and have flowers and bouquets to sell from the minute it goes up on the road to the minute it comes off the road at the end of the season in December. So tulips and daffodils, while I sell them not as cut flowers but in pots, and they do well, can't be the number 5th for that reason. What is the number 5th is sweet peas. So my sweet peas started blooming this year, the first week of June. In past years, I've had them start blooming 3rd week in May. So, you know, around It's been a weird year, like I said, for us because of the constant heat and the lack of rain that we've had since the beginning of May. I mean, we've had more rain now, but it's still not nearly as much as we normally have. It's sunny outside. Well, it's not sunny, it's cloudy. No rain today. Anyway, sweet peas make it because they, what did they say? They started either the 3rd week in May or the 1st week in June. I can sell them as bunches. I can put them in vase arrangements, or I can cut longer stems and put them in bouquets, and they go right through the season until September. And when I do custom bouquets, I love using long stems of sweet peas in there. People really respond to that because, again, sweet peas are an emotional flower. When people see sweet peas, they go, oh, I love sweet peas. Oh, I remember my mother or my grandmother. I love sweet peas. Oh, they smell so beautiful. Can I smell them? Like, they always want to smell them, whether they buy them or not. They just want to smell them. So having them in a custom bouquet, even if it's just 2 sprigs, just ups the level of that bouquet like you wouldn't believe. And if the bouquet has, let's say it's, let's pick a time where there's lots of things blooming. Let's say it's, well, it's either going to be sweet peas, peonies, and ranunculus, or it's going to be sweet peas, ranunculus, and sunflowers, or sweet peas, sunflowers, and dahlias. But either way, the sweet peas can fit into all of those. They also don't take up much room because they're just, you know, they're growing up a stick or a trellis. And the 2 spots that I grow them, I just have them along the backs or sides of the bed. I'm sorry, I was just looking at a car driving by my, I'm in my office and the window to the road is up that way, so I can actually tell if somebody pulls over to my flower wagon from here. But anyway, the sweet peas take up very little space. They bloom prolifically again. They bloom from the end of May, give or take, before or after, straight through to or into September. And they are so versatile in the way you use them, from straight bunches to little tiny arrangements, like more design arrangements, and bouquets. So those are my top 5.